You're listening to KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station, and welcome to the Ask Brien radio show and podcast, for those of you listening to the podcast. I am going solo today. I don't even know what to do with myself. Peter is out with the dreaded COVID, so we wish him well. He's probably listening right now, and we wish you were here in the studio with us, Peter. We already miss you. But I would be remiss if I didn't follow our tradition, which is to introduce Ask Brien, because it is not spelled normally. It is spelled exceptionally, and that is Ask Brien, B-R-I-E-N. And if you're listening to the Ask Brien radio show for the first time, you might be wondering, well, that's kind of crazy. Why are they spelling Ask Brien with an E? And that's because we love all of our E's, starting with our engineer. So big round of applause to you, Shane. Thank you for making us sound so good. Wish you could help us look good too, but we'll just take the sound good part of that. And then it's all about our experts, and our experts are what drives our show. We have amazing guests. Our guest today, we're going to have so much fun with. You cannot wait to introduce you to her. And experts in the Ask Brien world really require a lot of dedication, and we have a little formula where we define an expert as someone who has worked 10,000 hours in their field or business category, and most of the time you would think, okay, that's around 40 hours a week over 50 weeks a year, so that would take about 5 years. Well, we think that's absurd, because we know entrepreneurs never start out and probably never even ever work just 40 hours. So we think we could shortcut that down to about 3 years, of course. And then the education aspect of the show is our mission, it's our purpose, it's what connects us to you, it's what connects us to our guests. And the absolute E for education is our number one reason we're all here. And, well, we also like to have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy. And Peter always reminds me that my most favorite E, for those of you who are back and know this about me already, or just joining us for the first time, is that I'm a big fan of the E in Grease Lightning, which is electrifying. And speaking of electrifying, I want to introduce you to Rebecca Stein, the founder and CEO of Blind Tiger, the only line of non-alcoholic cocktails and mixers inspired by the Prohibition era. Oh my God, I can't think of anything even more cool than that. Welcome, Rebecca.
Oh, thanks, Tracy. I'm so excited to be here today.
Well, I can just say welcome back to the Roaring 20s, which is really one of my most favorite eras, mainly because of the style. And your brand, your style, everything comes through in your product. And so let's start with just giving our listeners a really good insight into Blind Tiger. What are the products? What is the purpose? And let's just start with that, because it is fabulous.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so as you briefly mentioned, Blind Tiger is the only line of non-alcoholic cocktails and mixers inspired by classic drinks from the Prohibition era. And the impetus for us, actually, so I was listening to your expert talk, and I have over 5 years experience, but I'd still say I'm far from being an expert in this arena. We actually opened a speakeasy style bar and restaurant back in 2017, and it's called Room 33, and it's based in Pennsylvania. And we were doing, it was going really well. It was unique to our city. And fast forward, as you know, it's obviously still a major issue today. COVID hits, and the restaurant is mandated to take out only. But in Pennsylvania at the time, you were not legally allowed to sell alcohol to go, and 90% of our sales were bar sales. So we really had to pivot or shut our doors. And to try to create some normalcy during that time, I didn't want to let the team go. So we ramped up a bunch of different options. We had already kind of created a little bit of a non-alcoholic menu because we saw that there was a huge gap in that market, even just in our travels around the country and everything. And one of the things that we did, though, exclusively well was bottling non-alcoholic versions of our craft cocktails. So at the time, the response was wonderful. When we launched this, or prior to when we launched this, we were doing a variety of them. And because we had such a great response, I went to the team and I said, just being probably out of my mind, I was like, oh, I wonder if we can't bring this to market somehow. And that's kind of how Blind Tiger was born, right? So Blind Tiger is a moniker for speakeasies. And I wanted to keep with the brand, the Prohibition era brand that I had already started to build. And I love it as well for probably all the reasons that you do. And we came up with 4 original flavors, and we're about to introduce a 5th. And we officially launched the product into market in about mid-2021. And we've been growing since.
Well, congratulations. And I really think, first of all, the innovation around that type of pivot during the pandemic when things were so chaotic, so frustrating, especially in the hospitality industry. I really applaud you for just, sticking your feet in the, on the ground and being like, we're staying in this, we're going to win this, and making decisions that were smart and strategic to keep your business alive and going. How has the post-pandemic, as people are coming back to more of their normal way of living, how has that been an accelerator for both the speakeasy, the restaurant, and the brand Blind Tiger as well?
So I think, So since, people have started to try to get back into their normal lifestyle or what it is today, the speakeasy has grown, which has been amazing, right? We are probably, this past year is the first year we were actually profitable. We were obviously generating revenue, but, to be able to stay that long, to endure the hardship of those years and then come back and be profitable was really a win for us. And then Blind Tiger it's unique because we create a whole non-alcoholic menu at the bar around it, but it's kind of taken on its own life as well. And the opportunities, in some ways, the challenges of the pandemic created opportunities for us because it allowed us to get in front of different people, different retailers, different networks a little bit easier because everybody went remote.
One of the things that I've been reading a lot about and I've seen a lot of people share about on social media is the amount of drinking alcohol that the consumption of alcohol increasing so much for them independently as an individual during the pandemic that it seems like that post-pandemic there has been such a huge trend for a non-alcoholic lifestyle that still enables you to feel like you're still fun, you're still social, you still have the same glassware, the same, and I feel like that you were almost ahead of the curve in a way. Your pivot was to stay profitable and sustain your business, but it feels like to me that you're really at the cutting edge of a new trend for people who have extended the decision to be living a non-alcoholic life.
Yes, and we noticed that when I started doing this, before we actually officially launched our business, I did extensive research into the market as well. And, in European countries, the non-alcoholic industry is booming and, they were ahead of the curve. And we in the United States had just kind of really started to emerge in this arena probably in 2020, 2019, 2020. And it's been growing leaps and bounds ever since. There's a lot of great non-alcoholic products out there and they're doing incredibly well. And for us, our entire vision really is to drive inclusivity, right? Like whether you're drinking or you're not, we want people to feel part of the occasion. And that's the unique thing about Blind Tiger is you can have this cocktail and you can have it with a spirit or you can have it without, but nobody is the wiser. It's the same setup. It's the same glass. The flavor profiles are the same. Obviously, the spirit's going to give you more of a kick, but, it's really just meant so that you can, whether you feel like drinking or not, or you're one of the 30% of the population that abstains from drinking for a variety of reasons, you have an opportunity to kind of still feel like, you're part of the occasion.
Yes, I love the inclusivity side of that, and I do think it just makes a huge difference for people to have that feeling a part of, even if they're not participating in the sidekick, like you said. And speaking of that, in terms of the other thing that I really liked as I was looking through your website, the ingredients of your product are super healthy.
Yes. So we use all natural, and we have some organic ingredients. We use organic cane sugar and honey. It's not a functional beverage, and there are a lot of really great ones out there that are supposed to give you like the relaxation effect that do exist in the market. Ours was more just meant to be like just a cool, sophisticated cocktail, right? Like you got to enjoy all the flavors, but it was more just having that unique drink in your hand, right?
But you're not really putting a lot of like chemicals and stuff as a result of it. I mean, because, sometimes you could say, okay, well, I'm not going to drink. I'll just have a Diet Coke or something like that. But the product that you've created, I mean, I've read that it's like gluten-free and you're using natural sugars, and it just feels like it's a healthier alternative to even like choosing a soda.
Oh, it's much healthier than choosing a soda for sure. It has nowhere near the sugar content, and even the one varietal, the bee's knees, doesn't even use sugar. Honey is actually the natural sweetener for it. But the other ones are lower in sugar, and even that is an organic cane sugar that we do use. But there's no artificial ingredients, no preservatives. And that's, what's unique is with our product too. And if you see it, it'll settle a little bit at times, and that's because we don't use a binding agent, right? Like, so you just shake it well, but it kind of gives you the characteristics of a cool alcohol or a cool cocktail.
So coming from a background of not being in manufacturing, not being in food service, I mean, because as I was looking at your bio, the Speakeasy was your first restaurant, is that right?
Yes. I had worked in them over the course of my life, and I had worked in sales in hospitality at hotels, but that was my first foray. And how that actually came to be was I've been very involved in our community. I had run for political office, and the second time I ran for political office for city council, I lost by a couple hundred votes, but one of my pillars was to invest in our downtown. And the way that I knew to do that best was to capitalize on what I did know, and it was hospitality and entertaining and event planning, and just surrounding myself with experts in their field really kind of propelled it to be successful. I knew when we launched, I had to bring smarter people around me to make it go. And actually, the team that we launched with is still with us today.
That's amazing. So I have to say, I mean, the passion and the commitment to reinvigorate downtown, that's a huge passion point for me in any town. To take that on, plus actually starting and running a restaurant, which is one of the highest risk investments in entrepreneurial paths that one can take, and then to parlay that into launching a literal brand and product that you take to market that you ultimately end up distributing to wholesale, and not only just out of your own facility, but then into stores and things like that. Like, what a leap. What was one of the things that, I mean, did you feel like you were, what have I gotten myself into, or I'm ready to do this, or did you bring in a team to support you? How did you navigate that? Because that's a big leap.
It's a huge leap. And when I reflect on it, I sometimes don't really know what actually, like, I really do believe I wake up with an idea and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to figure it out as I go along. And it really was that. I think there's a serendipitous piece to it, right? Like, I do believe along the pathway of it, I connected with people that helped make that leap not so crazy. And when I decided I wanted to do this as a business, I had already invested much of my own money into the restaurant. So I didn't have a ton of money to get this one started. But locally there was, and actually it's a statewide competition through a group called Ben Franklin Technology Partners. They have what's called a big idea competition, and they host a couple throughout the state every year. And their grand prize ranges, but it's upwards of $50,000. And before I actually even had the product in hand, obviously I had done the business plan and all the work and the financials and everything for it. And I was like, what do I have to lose? So I applied for this particular competition, and I ended up winning the grand prize. And that gave me two things, right? That gave me a little bit of a market viability without the market, right? Like if they're willing to invest in me, I'm like, okay, this has to be something, because they know manufacturing and technology better than most in the state. And then obviously it gave me the funds and some of the connections to kind of get me going. And it was really that served as a catapult for me to start to grow this.
And I think that's one of a really important entrepreneurial lesson that I want to just hit on, and that is that, first of all, you had the idea, and that is the definition of entrepreneurship right there. Is like, I have the idea, I'm going to figure out how to do it, and I'm just going to go for it. Because if you don't have that spirit to just drive you on the times when things are so hard, then it's just never going to happen, right? But then
right.
taking that mindset and then going, okay, this is a great idea, but I need some help, and then having the courage and putting yourself out there to participate in this program that ultimately you ended up winning the top grand prize. So not only were you able to get the support and the mentorship and the funding, which is amazing, but I would also venture to say that was a great validation of concept for you as well.
Yes, it was exactly that. And what else did, it was a huge validation of concept, and it really gave me the energy I needed to keep going, because I'll tell you what, as you probably know very well, or others in the arena too, that in the entrepreneurial journey, there's a lot of downs, there's a lot of dips, and you need the wins, no matter how small they are, but you need to have them to keep going. And that served as a reminder for a long time as, I was venturing into this territory.
Yeah, I know, right? Because it's like when you see, and I try so hard not to fall into this in my own world of running my own business, it's like everybody on social media seems like they're doing freaking fabulously. Like they're only sharing the wins. They're only sharing the highs. They're only sharing the successes. But to your point, the lows are sometimes where we learn the most, but it's also when we need the most support. So if we're not sharing that level of connection, then we're really doing other entrepreneurs a disservice.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. And actually, jokingly yesterday, I made a post on LinkedIn saying that one day I was going to write a Dr. Seuss style book called "Oh, the Mistakes I've Made" instead of "Oh, the Places You'll Go." And it will be an illustrated journey of all the things I've done wrong since I've launched my business, because everybody has them. And if they tell you otherwise, they're just not, I don't know. They just have no comprehension. So.
Well, I tell you what, that is actually a perfect place for us to pause, because when we come back from the break, I want you to share some of those screw-ups of launching the business with our fans, our followers, our listeners, because they are going to want to hear that. So we are going to take a break. You are listening to KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. Welcome back to KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. And right before the break, I was talking with our guest, Rebecca Stein, who is the founder and CEO of Blind Tiger, which is the only line of non-alcoholic cocktails and mixers inspired by the Prohibition era. I just love that. We were talking about her aspirations to write the book, a parody of Dr. Seuss's "Oh, the places you'll go, her version is, oh, the mistakes I've made, talking about the mistakes of launching a business. So, Rebecca, no one learns more than what went wrong. No one learns from what went right. Everyone learns from what went wrong. So throw some of your life lessons in, oh, the mistakes I've made. I think you should write the book too, by the way.
Oh, I do as well. I think, I always said I had a book in me, and I'm like, you know what? This is actually a really good idea. So I don't honestly where to begin, right? I have made so many, but I can actually start at the very beginning of the journey. You don't know what you don't know, right? And you're constantly learning and relearning everything. And one of the things is when we launched our product, I was insistent we were going to produce it in Boston round bottles because that type of apothecary bottle just seemed to go really well with the style of the brand and was widely available, right? Without having to spend a lot of money to get your own type of bottle made. So we did this, and we started out with 32-ounce bottles. And when we did that, we got labels printed. I wanted to stay local at the time because I had a lot of relationships here, and we were so we produced these labels locally, and then they ended up going. I found a co-packer, which is a whole nother story, and how to get into co-packers, especially when you're really small and emerging. And so we sent them over there, and I got my first shipment of product, and I literally got my first shipment of product. It was 2 years ago yesterday, because I saw the picture pop up on my timeline, and it was, several pallets. And I opened up the boxes because I was so excited to see it. And all the labels had come out all wrinkly and on every single bottle in every single box. And it looked terrible. It looked awful. And I was so distressed, and I didn't know what happened, right? Like, I was like, nobody had an answer. And what was funny is the guy who had done my labels, he was used to working with wineries and distilleries, which is such a different process than the type of production and manufacturing we had used, which was a hot fill process. And what I learned, which is so small, and like I said, you don't know what you don't know, is the glue wasn't up to temperature, the glue on the labels. So I had to get all the labels reprinted. And I had a Kickstarter about to launch, so I had to use the product that we had in hand. And there was a lot of apologies when I was sending it out because the product itself was good. It was just the labels looked, not great at all. They were just very sad.
Well, I mean, I just want to reiterate for those who have not walked the path of owning and running a restaurant or not taken a product to market in the food and beverage industry, because I've actually done both of those. I've owned 2 restaurants and I've launched a cookie line. And so I am so empathetic with what you're saying. But for those of you who have never walk that path, like, you have chosen, literally, in my personal opinion, the 2 most difficult things to do by launching and running a restaurant and launching and running a food and beverage product. So the fact that the mistake was the temperature of the glue is as significant as that was to the level of disappointment to the visual brand. I have to say, in the scheme of things, you're doing amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. It didn't feel that way then, because you're like, you're trying to sell it to retailers, and that is the first impression it makes, right? So that was really hard. That was hard.
Okay, so you get the co-packer, you get the temperature of the glue right, and believe me, I know horror stories around co-packers, so it sounds like you did ultimately land with a good one. So that's half the battle right there. What were some of the initial responses to the product, and did you have to then ultimately tweak the product to improve it based on feedback? How did that work? And we have about 60 seconds before our break, so just getting you a heads up on that.
Okay, yeah, actually the product itself was very well received. People really like the flavors. The flavor profiles are very known to the consumer. They're like lemons, oranges, cherries, a bit of a smoky. They're all unique, but they're not like unknown flavor profiles. So that kind of helped us in the process. And there was only one profile we changed up just a little bit, and that was our sidecar. And we just added a little bit more brandy to it to start. But overall, we haven't changed anything yet. Fingers crossed.
And you launched with 4 products, and you have a 5th coming out, or it's already out?
It will be out for retail in about 2 weeks, and this one I'm super excited about. It's a lavender French 75. It's so delicious. So
walk us through tell us the names of the first 4, and then the 5th.
Yep. So they all have unique names: the Bee's Knees, the Ward 8, the Sidecar, and the South Side. And they all have a purported history as well attached to them, which I can tell you about when we come back if you'd like. Otherwise, the last one is, again, the Lavender French 75. And these are all pre- and post-Prohibition cocktails, that were known to that era.
Well, we are going to take a break to connect with our sponsor. I just want to make sure she's here, and if she's not, we'll keep going. And if she is, then we'll definitely circle back to that.
Okay.
All right. Welcome, Stephanie. How are you today?
Hi. Good. How are you guys?
We're great, except for Peter is literally under the weather with with a lot of COVID. So
oh, no.
It's just us ladies here in the studio today.
Oh, nice. I like it, Tracy. Late.
Yeah, exactly. Our guest, Rebecca's been amazing. She has an amazing product that's non-alcoholic cocktail called Blind Tiger. And you are here to talk to us about the amazing product from Albany Farms, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm so excited. Thanks for having me. So if you guys don't know about Albany Farms, we're a food manufacturer. We imported product before we started manufacturing. And now we make our own ramen in Bellevue, South Dakota.
Well, we were just talking about co-packers and manufacturing products in Pennsylvania, and now we can talk about keeping the manufacturing in South Dakota. I love all this U.S.-based manufacturing. It makes me so happy, especially when it comes to food and beverages. Absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
So, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about the flavors that are available and where can people find the product?
Yeah, great question. So if anybody wants to pick up our product, we can be found in select H-E-B stores, which is primarily a Texas area region. You can find us in select Target stores as well. And you can find us in select Walmart Canada stores. So those are the 3 retailers right now. I believe we're going live with 99 only or $1 free in the next coming weeks. And we have a bunch of local retailers like Looters, MJ's, that carry our product as well. Our SKUs run anywhere from chicken, beef, veggie, spicy chicken, and shrimp. And they're all awesome. We've gotten a lot of great feedback on all our flavors.
Well, I'm glad you're not doing the maple bacon pancake flavor, which I did see a screenshot of some ramen noodles on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Yesterday, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I love all of the flavors that you guys have. I don't know that one is going to be one that I would pick up at the store. So glad that was not you.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yes, definitely. And then also talk to us a little bit about legal steps as well.
Yeah, so legal steps is a do-it-yourself system, which I really love. And it basically helps you handle legal issues like forming a business in California or even registering a federal trademark, saving you thousands of dollars, actually. The difference between, going to a lawyer and handling it yourself with some guidance was astronomical. And so it really empowers entrepreneurs and makes legal easy. And I can say this firsthand. I have taken the courses and I've loved them. So I definitely recommend them to those individuals who are seeking to do it on their own with some guidance.
And we're spelling legal steps with a Z, correct?
Correct. So the reason why is because they cover everything from A to Z, making legal easy.
Oh, if Peter were here, he would be so proud. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye. Okay, Rebecca, that's one thing that we haven't really talked about is so when you are launching a product, I know you had to go through, making sure that your intellectual property is protected and the whole legal aspect of that, right? I bet it would have been awesome to have a system like Legal Steps in that process.
Yes, yeah. And there is a lot. We tried to originally trademark the name, but we were not successful with it because it was trademarked under a brewery in New York, actually, which even though they are completely different products, at the time I didn't have the capacity to fight it. So we went back and actually reapplied for it just a couple months ago. So we're waiting on that now. And we also tried to trademark the names of the cocktails, and that is another challenging one. What's interesting is there's actually only 5 trademarked cocktails in the U.S., and I'm not going to remember all of them, but the Dark and Stormy and the Painkiller are 2 of them. And when we originally created our line of drinks, we had a 5th varietal. It was the Bacardi, and because that one was trademarked, we didn't touch it. So we dropped that one and we launched with the original 4.
Well, and that's one of the things that we were talking about before Stephanie joined us is about the whole brand being around the Prohibition era and the Roaring 20s. What was the inspiration for that, and how does that connect? I know because of the speakeasy, but it seems like it's something that's been something that is an extension of maybe a personal preference or passion of your own. How did that inspiration occur?
Yes. So when we opened the speakeasy, the entire impetus of the restaurant was to be a speakeasy. We had traveled around to my husband and I had traveled around to many of them around the country. We are both, I'm really into the culture of that era, and my husband is a huge history buff. And he's also a major book collector. We have thousands of books, a lot of first editions in our home. And when we opened, that was my one promise to him, was that the secret entrance to the speakeasy would be through a bookcase. So we created that as the entrance to the restaurant. So the front of the place looks like a little bookshop, and then you go through a bookcase to get into the restaurant. But just everything from that time, the style of the time, the music, the jazz age, everything I was so in love with. And even the name for our speakeasy is Room 33, and that's because Prohibition ended in 1933, and I wanted to create a marriage of pre- and post-Prohibition and the times. So I know obviously there were a lot of bad things that happened then too, but it's amazing when you revisit the history of that era, all the interesting things that actually did occur and the changes that were made because of that time frame.
Well, and for those of you who are listening, when you have a chance, you've got to go on LinkedIn and take a look at Rebecca's profile picture because it is just so spot on, speakeasy, elegant. And speaking of inclusivity, you're drinking one of the products, but you're drinking it in a martini glass, right? Or is that, at least from the picture, that's what it looks like. So it's just everything about it, the brand, 360-degree, holistically intact. It's just gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much. And yes, I am drinking it in a martini glass. And that's actually the intent of most of the cocktails, is to drink them either in a martini or a coupe style glass.
Love that. Okay, so we were talking about some of the challenges of the distribution aspects. How about when you were going from owning just the speakeasy to then now taking this product to market and launching it, how did you have to expand your team in order to grow the business, but then also being mindful that it's essentially a second startup. So keeping those costs in line as well. So what does it look like for your overall leadership team and your team in general right now?
Yeah, the team is actually really small, and because that has been a challenge, right? When you don't have a ton of capital to start with, it's hard to bring on full-time employees. And so I've been working with contractors that kind of specialize in their area more than anything. And then I also have one full-time employee with me. But the nice part is when we launched to the individuals that helped us create the product and everything were part of our team at 133. So they were founders with us. And they kind of knew going into it, they weren't going to get paid for, quite some time. So we all took on a role where none of us were paid for quite some time. And now I just pay myself a little bit because I'm full-time in this, more than full-time in this position, obviously. And they still do some part-time work with us. But it's a capital intensive thing to continue to hire to help scale and grow, to grow a business. So, and I'm continually looking for investment to kind of help do that.
That's so incredibly true, and we're going to talk more about that when we come back from the break. You are listening to KHTS FM 98.1 and AM 1220, your hometown station. And we're back at KHTS FM 98.1, AM 1220, your hometown station. And we are back with our guest, Rebecca Stein, founder and CEO of Blind Tiger. And before the break, we were talking about scaling a business with a small team. And so in terms of scaling, what I really want to have our audience hear about is what are the plans for Blind Tiger? Where do you see this going? What is your vision for the product line for the company?
Yes. So from a team perspective, it's interesting. I'm a jack of all trades, master of some, none, but some, right now, especially in this arena. And there are definitely things that you learn as a founder, kind of where your strengths lie. And mine really are in marketing, sales, communication. And that's where I do my best work. And so when I'm handling the other things, accounting and HR and operations and everything like that, it pulls those energies. And it's important whether you have a mentor or a partner that can kind of help guide you during that time to help you grow and scale the company. It's beneficial to have that. So my hope is obviously to add a really integral key team member that also can help us scale and bring other people on. My hope with the company, obviously, I'd love to grow it to a degree. I'd like to continue to expand the product line offering and continue to refine that, that product market fit, because that's so integral. And we launched 2 years ago. We're in about 400 locations, but we're about to more than double that. We've gotten to 2 major retailers that will be launching this summer, and I'm very excited for those. But, it's one thing to get on the shelf, but especially as a marketing person, I understand how important it is to move it off the shelf, to do that sell-through, and to continue to get customers to come back. So it's really determining, our business model is very strong in distribution and retail, and we are just a little bit in e-commerce, but I think it's a combination of having that omnipresence. In order to be successful, you kind of have to figure out where exactly you want to go and who needs to be there with you. So, obviously I'd love to be a national brand in the next few years, but time will tell.
Well, and I think I want to highlight what you said and have it not get lost, because I think it's such an important point. Is it's one thing to get on the shelf, but you also have to stay on the shelf, because you need the business data, the track record, the success, the social proof. You need all that to continue to expand towards the goal of being the national brand. And so that, and with your expertise in marketing, I would ask, how are you marketing, and what is working that is getting people to buy the product off the shelves? How are people finding out about it? 400 locations is not a small amount of venues, places for people to purchase it, but how are they knowing about it, where to go and get it?
Yeah, so we try to we do a variety of different things. Social media is something that obviously everybody does, but you need to know exactly where you're pointing your efforts at. And ours are really focused in like Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest, like areas where you're capitalizing on recipes and things like that and kind of showcasing what your product does to an nth degree. But then what was really challenging early on, especially during COVID, was you couldn't go out and do samplings, right? So that was one of the downfalls of launching a product during COVID is you couldn't go into stores and offer people samples because of, for the obvious reasons of, you just didn't want to expose any, you were, just having open sampling in product in stores. So now we're doing a lot more of that. And there's a lot of companies out there that you can work with to help fulfill that, because obviously when you're national, you can't be everywhere. But I think that's integral, right, is to create that customer experience, to kind of show people exactly what the product is and what it can do. But then, just from a marketing and branding standpoint, visuals are so integral to me. We've done some beautiful photography. We've done a beautiful commercial. We started to do some media buys in a regional area, and that's where capital comes in too. Like, it's super essential. I've seen how it's done well from a media buy standpoint at the local and regional level, but to get national like that, it's just, you have to have the sell-through and you have to have the capital to support it.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking during the break about what a natural lens, this brand has such a natural lens to storytelling and crafting stories around each of these different products in the whole Prohibition and Speakeasy. So I'm going to very much look forward to continuing a conversation with you about bringing that storytelling to life, perhaps through a podcast, because I think your customer base would just respond so well to that. But in the meantime, if someone wants to continue this conversation with you, because I know they're going to want to, what is the best way for people to reach out if they have questions or they want to learn a little bit more about your soon-to-be-released The Mistakes I've Made?
Yes. Well, obviously, we have a website. It's blindtigerspiritfree.com, and I can be reached directly through that website. There's a contact that just goes to me, an email contact, but also Rebecca at blindtigerspiritfree.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very present on social media, very present. So it's hard to not reach me. And even on like Instagram and Facebook, our handles are Blind Tiger Cocktails. And, if you go there and message or check out the product, you can learn more about, the history of a lot of the cocktails. You can learn more different recipes and, the backstory and everything like that. So I'm very accessible. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm pretty accessible.
Oh, no, that's amazing. And speaking of podcasts, which we did earlier, I want to remind everyone that all of this information, all of the contact information that Rebecca just gave out, the website address, all of those are going to be in the show notes for the podcast, so you can refer back to those as a reference. And you want to find us on any place that you listen to your favorite podcast, which is Apple, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartMedia, wherever you get your and listen to your podcast. Please follow us, download us, share it with your friends. It's the Ask Brien podcast. Of course, that's ASN podcast, and you can listen to this episode and all of our previous ones. And Rebecca, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. We're going to have to wrap up now, but really appreciate you being here and love to have you back on in a future time when Peter can be with us as well.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
And you're listening to KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.